friends. Welcome back to Bible Time with Miss Luann. We have another exciting story today. Are you ready? I hope you're listening. Do you notice anything different on my desk? What are all of these things? Do you know? What could this be? Tools, right? There's going to be some tools in our story today. Let's wait and hear about it. So, in our Bible story today, Nehemiah led God's people to rebuild the walls. But men nearby did not want this, and they made a plan to attack them. Some of God's people watched for the enemies while others worked on the walls. That's what our story is about today. Are we ready? Let's get into it. God's people had been freed from Babylon, but not everyone went home to the land of Judah. Nehemiah was one of God's people. He had an important job serving the king of Persia. One day, some men came from Judah. Nehemiah asked them, "How are God's people doing?" "The people are in trouble," they said. "The walls around the city are broken apart and the gates have been burned down." Nehemiah cried and prayed to God when he heard the bad news. The king saw that Nehemiah was sad. "What's wrong, Nehemiah?" the king asked. Nehemiah said, "The city where my family is from is in trouble. The walls around the city are broken and the gates have been burned down." How sad is that? So what happened in that city? The walls were being knocked down and the gates were broken down. The walls were there, but not all of them because they had been knocked down. Some of them were knocked down. The gates had been burned. What a mess it was. Nehemiah said, so the king sent Nehemiah to Jerusalem to rebuild the city. In Jerusalem, Nehemiah led the people to rebuild Jerusalem's wall and fix the gates in the wall. Everyone in the city worked on the walls. Before long, the wall was halfway rebuilt. Halfway, so they had to keep building and building because this is going to take a long time to rebuild the wall. It's got to go around the whole city. Some men who lived nearby did not like God's people, and they did not want them to have the walls to keep them safe. The men made fun of God's people and made a plan to attack them. Nehemiah did not want the people to be afraid. God is great and powerful, he said. If our enemies attack us, God will fight for us. So God's people kept working. Some of the men stood guard with weapons while others worked on the walls. Perhaps they had weapons like this. So they were protecting the men while they were building the walls. They just kept working and working and working on this wall. And the men are keeping them safe. The people were always ready to fight just in case. Nehemiah was a good leader for God's people. He helped them when they had problems, and he told them to trust God. Before long, the wall was finished. The gates and the walls were fixed, and God's people were safe. The people's enemies were afraid because they knew that God was with his people. Nehemiah helped God's people fix the walls around their city. The walls protected the people from their enemies. Jesus protects us from our enemies too. When we know and love Jesus, he keeps us safe from sin, and we will live with him forever. How exciting. So finally, the walls is finished. The gates are back up. The wall around the entire city is finished. They worked so hard, the men kept them safe, and now they are safe from their enemies. And Nehemiah got to go to Jerusalem to help rebuild the wall. So God kept them safe. They worked hard. They didn't give up either. So sometimes we have choices. Sometimes we have choices to do what's right and to do what's wrong. In our story today, the men who were working on the wall, they were making the right choice. But sometimes people make the wrong choice and do what's wrong. Like if your mom says, "Don't jump on the bed," but you think, "But that's so much fun. I just want to do it anyway." What will you do? Will you do it? Will you listen, or will you not? The bed could break. You could get hurt. That's what happened to God's people, the Israelites. They chose to disobey God over and over again, and that's when they had to go away to Babylon for 70 years. Finish up just a little bit more of our wall. There you go. So I don't know that they use tools like this, maybe a hammer. And you can tell these are mine because they're pink. A screwdriver, some pliers, and a measuring tape. It's always good to measure what we're going to make. So we already talked about those tools. We can make our wall in different ways too. So we'll take down this wall and our gate. What else can we make our wall out of? We've done this before too, and maybe in your class you're going to do this. We could make a wall out of cups. How are you going to do that? Well, first you have to stack them all along in a row next to each other. Just keep stacking them and stacking them. They have to touch on the bottom so we can do the next row. How's that? Okay, now we're going to start with the next row on top of those. What do you think of that? That could be a wall too, right? And if we needed to be just a little bit higher so that people could be safer, we could do that. That was a pretty fast wall, right? Why don't you try that too? How can we get rid of this wall? I say let's knock it down. What do you think? Ready, set. We did it. And I have one more way we could build a wall. I bet some of you have these kind of blocks at home. Some people blocks. We could just build walls with these. These look like actual bricks that maybe the wall was built with. So you just have to attach them together, little by little, working. You could work with a friend, making your wall higher and higher, and it sticks together so it's not going to fall over. What do you think? Do you like it? You could see how high you could make your wall. Maybe make it around your classroom today. Give it a try. See if you can find the blocks and make your wall out of blocks. These kind of blocks. I think we need one more little one and we have finished this part of our wall. There you go. Give that a try too. So for our craft, we're actually going to make a wall too. What do you think about that idea? We're going to need some plain paper. So here's our paper. Some glue, of course. Glue. We'll need a Q-tip to get the glue out. And some construction paper bricks that look like this. So I would say put the glue on the paper first and then add our bricks. What do you think? So we're stirring it up. We're going to paint this on. Do you like to do this also? Do you like to glue? So what was the wall for? The wall was there to keep God's people safe from their enemies. And you know who keeps us safe from our enemies? Jesus does. That's right. Okay, we got our glue on. Now we can just start layering on the bricks. Just put them on one after the other. And if we already put a lot of glue on, then it's going to stick. It's going to work out perfect. If you want to do all different colors or all the same color, it's up to you. Building our wall to protect the city. Maybe a little bit more on the top. What do you think? It's kind of fun to work with glue. We'll just add brick after brick after brick. Then when we're done, I will show you what it looks like. What do you think of this? There. There's my brick wall. Let me see what yours looks like. We'll put all our supplies away. We have one more thing to do before we're finished today. And thank you for joining me. We're going to talk about our verse. Okay, ready? We should feel sorry when we disobey God and want to obey Him. That's our verse phrase from 2 Corinthians 7:10. We should feel sorry when we disobey God and want to obey Him. 2 Corinthians 7:10. That's a good thing to do. But how should we feel when we make a wrong choice? When we make a wrong choice, we should feel sorry we have disobeyed God and want to obey Him. Just like that was our verse. When we make a wrong choice, that's what we should do. We should feel sorry and want to obey God. In our picture, we can see Nehemiah so happy and the men all building the wall. Their wall is very tall. You could make yours very tall too. Anyways. Thank you for joining me today. Have a good time. Maybe get some tools with your family and build something. That would be exciting. Have a good day today, and remember, Jesus loves you. Until next time.
Family, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look on you with favor and give you his sweet peace. You are loved.